This is the Georgia Farm Monitor. Since 1966, your source for state and national agribusiness news, and features for farmers and consumers about Georgia's #1 industry, agriculture. The Georgia Farm Monitor is produced by the state's largest general farm organization, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now, here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Bergamy.
As promised, the Monitor is back. Last week we told you we would see you again this week, and here we are. Mine is Kenny Bergamy, who was on assignment. Coming up, our John Holcomb goes one-on-one with Vice President Mike Pence and asks that all-important question, how is the administration making ag great again? Also on the program, after a lack of chill hours followed by some recent frigid temperatures, how does this year's peach crop look? Plus, abundant rainfall, increased funding, and excellent growing conditions have set up 2018 to be one of the best trout seasons ever here in Georgia. Today, the Monitor gets a personalized look at how the Georgia DNR fills our mountain streams and rivers with big, beautiful, and plentiful trout. These stories and so much more starting right now on the Georgia Farm Monitor. Right in the heart of peanut country, you will find Premium Peanut, which owns and operates the newest and largest shelling facility in the world. And recently, thanks to a $14 million investment, it's expanded its operation to include oil production. Damon Jones tells you how the idea came about and what it means for the industry.
With the state of Georgia accounting for nearly half of the nation's peanut production, it's important that each aspect of the industry work in harmony. And nothing exemplifies that more than the grower-owned operation Premium Peanut, which helps farmers with each step of the process.
We're essentially a cooperative. Over 350 farmers, 30 counties throughout Georgia, and we work with them to grow, harvest, and then shell peanuts. And we are the only shelling plant east of 75, and as peanut production and peanut growing has moved into southeast Georgia over the past 15 years, there really was a need logistically to have something close.
This facility, which shells up to 900 tons of peanuts a day, helps save farmers time and money thanks to its convenient location right in the middle of peanut country.
It's extremely beneficial just from a logistical standpoint. Minimize those freight costs, both getting the product out of the field at harvest into the buying points, and then from the buying points or the collection points into the shelling plant.
One of the major partners for this operation since its opening in 2015 has been SunTrust Bank, who provided both working capital and flexible financing. It's the kind of partnership they believe is essential not just for agriculture, but to the future of the country.
Well, if you look at food and agriculture in the United States, it's a significant part of our GDP, and it's a category that we are not likely to rely on a foreign source of supply. So as we think about the next several decades, food and agribusiness will be a significant part of the U.S. domestic economy.
And with that in mind, Premium Peanut recently expanded their operation, building a state-of-the-art peanut oil facility, which creates more value to the product by using the entire supply.
We're generating a lot of non-edible peanuts. They're part of the manufacturing process. I come from a metals manufacturing, and you have scrap there. Well, our scrap is peanuts that are too small, they're broken, maybe they have damage in them, and we can't sell them to the edible market, but you can absolutely crush them and produce peanut oil from them.
As for how the oil is produced, it's really a simple process.
You break them down into small pieces, you heat them up to release that oil, and then it's a mechanical press, and it really is just using mechanical pressure to squeeze the oil out.
With the addition of a new operation comes an addition of new jobs as well. And with the peanut industry being so far-reaching within the state, it's not just the local community that sees the benefits from this expansion.
And when you think about Premium Peanut, it's had a huge impact on the greater Douglas community. It's obviously having an impact on this particular business, but it's also helping to light the way to financial well-being for hundreds of farmers that are members of the cooperative. And so indirectly, it touches literally hundreds of families in South Georgia.
We have over 200 employees. And so clearly I think that's important for this county and for where we are locally. But our growers are in 30 counties throughout southern Georgia, and we have 10 buying points spread throughout the southern part of the state. And so I think when you look at our true economic impact to agriculture and to the peanut industry throughout the state of Georgia, it's very significant.
Reporting from Douglas, I'm Damon Jones for the Farm Monitor.
In other ag news, after a challenging 2017, which saw record low chill hours and hurricane damage, peach producers recently faced a spring freeze that resulted in damage to some of the earlier varieties. However, despite the setback, there is plenty of optimism heading into the harvesting season, as most of the varieties are still in good shape.
We have a much larger crop than last year. We've got our late peaches that didn't hardly bloom last year. They were, full bloom, getting close to full bloom, prior to the freeze. And they are all looking really good. We're finding peaches there. Where we see an injury, we might have lost a percentage of the bloom crop, but we always remove those ourselves.
Meantime, it's not every day, or in our case every week, that you see the Vice President of the United States here on the Monitor. But recently in Atlanta, an organization called America First Policies held an event that included many dignitaries, including our nation's second in command. The Monitor's John Holcomb has the story.
It was a packed house as around 500 people gathered for an America First Policies event, as a few notable speakers were in attendance to talk about the success of the current administration. Georgia's Governor Deal was there, along with the administrator of the EPA, Scott Pruitt. Pruitt got the chance to speak and talked about the importance of deregulation and working together with American businesses.
We had agencies in Washington, D.C. that were trying to tell folks all over Georgia and all over the country how to do their business in ways that were counterproductive to the economy. And the EPA was at the top of that list. And the president put me in charge of the EPA to get reform, to get changes made, to make sure that we trust people across this country as opposed to treat them like adversaries.
We got the chance to catch up with Pruitt after the event, and he discussed the WOTUS rule and what else is next for the EPA.
I think what we've got to do is finish these areas, these changes like the WOTUS rewrite, the president's leadership on that to send that message to me to get that fixed. That's going to be done this year. The Clean Power Plan is going away. The president's exit from the Paris Accord sent a great message that America is going to put first. And so as we go into 2018, we're going to continue just finishing those rules to make sure that Americans all over the country recognize that they're our partners, that we can achieve good things together.
The guest of honor, though, was of course Vice President Pence. He spoke about a wide range of topics, and afterward, we got the chance to speak in a one-on-one with him about some big issues in ag.
How is the administration making ag great again?
Well, it's a wonderful question, and I will tell you that President Trump, our entire administration, understand that America is many things, but throughout our history, America has been all about agriculture, literally from our nation's founding. And agriculture today is such a dynamic and important industry, not only feeding the nation, but literally feeding the world, that we've made a real priority on rolling back regulations that'll make it more possible for family farmers to succeed and to grow.
Let's move now to trade. Trade's a huge topic right now. It's very important to ag. Exports are very important to farmers.
Sure is.
What is the administration doing to protect those producers that rely on it so much? And, also, what are they doing to open up new markets?
Well, we're working every day to open up new markets. For more than a decade, for instance, beef cattle were barred from China, and the president last year was able to announce that we lifted that ban, and we're now exporting beef to China. We've been engaging countries across South America and across the world to take more American agricultural products. And as we renegotiate NAFTA, and as we're in the midst of promising discussions with our ally in South Korea and other countries, make no mistake about it, the president's going to recognize the important role that exports play in the vitality of our agricultural economy. And as we renegotiate those deals, which haven't always been a winner for American manufacturing, we're going to make sure that it wins for American workers, but also is a win for American agriculture.
You can find the full interview with Vice President Pence online at farm-monitor.com. Reporting in Atlanta for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
Very nice job, John. Thank you so much. How's this for an adventure? When we come back, a behind-the-scenes look at the Georgia DNR's trout stocking program. From the time they're hatched and eventually released is an incredible process. See for yourself when the Monitor continues.
My name's Doyle Floyd. I'm one of the agriculture teachers at Blakely County High School, and I've been teaching for 31 years. I started out in Mitchell County in 1987 as a young farmer teacher. I taught there for 5 years. In '92, I had the chance to begin a program in Hawkinsville High School. I was there for 8 years. I moved from Hawkinsville to Swainsboro, was there for 4 years, and then left to come home. This is home for me. I graduated from Blakely County High School in 1979. In the 14 years I've been here, we've won multiple state championships in forestry, wildlife. We've also won state championships in ag mechanics. My teaching partner, Walt Parks, and Kevin Jump both have won. There is a big need for ag teachers. The one thing I would ask anybody that's going into the field is they need to love it. If you go in it for the money, that's the wrong reason. You need to go in it for what you can do for the students and the program. We don't work an 8 to 5 schedule. I may start at 4 o'clock in the morning and may finish at 9 o'clock at night. It just depends on what's going on that day. That's the way I was raised. I mean, I was raised on a farm. You got up in the morning, you started to work, and when it got dark, then you came in, The one thing that I love about teaching ag is it's never the same. There's no 2 days the same. The comments that they make, the reactions in their eyes when they do something that they didn't realize they could do, that's probably the one thing I'm gonna miss more than anything.
Well, here's an interesting tidbit. It's estimated that Georgia has 4,000 miles of trout streams and over 100,000 trout anglers. So yes, keeping up with their demands and acceptable catch rates can be challenging, but somehow, some way, the Georgia DNR gets the job done and will continue stocking those streams well into the summer. It is a unique process, one in which yours truly got to witness firsthand during a recent trip to Rabun County.
My name is John Lee Thompson, and I am the trout stocking coordinator for the state of Georgia. Georgia Department of Natural Resources, in cooperation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, stock 1 million catchable trout in Georgia each year. The catchable trout is a fish that reaches about 10 inches in our hatcheries and are stocked in about 25 different counties all across North Georgia. If you were to draw a line from Rome through the Dahlonega area to Toccoa, any water on public land above there is probably trout water in Georgia, and is where most of these fish are being stocked. There's also a huge trout fishery below Lake Lanier that's worth mentioning, runs right through downtown Atlanta on the Chattahoochee River. So we have all this wonderful cold water resources here in Georgia, but our water chemistry makes for slow growth of wild trout. So in order to supplement the wild trout population and support all the fishing pressure we have in Georgia, we grow 1 million fish in our hatcheries and stock them all over in Georgia. Lake Burton Fish Hatchery is one of 4 trout hatcheries located in Georgia and is one of our grow-out facilities operated by the state. It's what's called a flow-through hatchery, and that means we divert Moccasin Creek out of its original stream banks. The water passes over the fish one time, and then it's returned back to its original creek after passing over the fish. We typically will grow about 325,000 fish there each year. Trout, probably about 80% rainbow trout and 20% brown trout. When we were at Burton earlier today, we saw some small fish on the hatchery. Those are fish that will actually be stocked in 2019. We also saw some fish that were 10 inches and will be stocked, 80–90% of them will be stocked between now and July 4th. Our stocking schedules start regularly. April, May, June is when the majority of our fish hit the water. There's a couple different reasons for that. One is to make space for fingerlings for the next year in our hatcheries, but also that's when trout fishing is best in Georgia. Our water quality is the best, our flows are high, and we're managing all these public water bodies that these fish are hitting as put and take fisheries. We're putting these fish out for folks to catch them and take them home and eat them. We don't expect them to go out and reestablish a wild trout population. We have plenty of great wild trout populations in Georgia, but that's not the goal of our program. Our goal of our stocking program is this put and take management of these areas. So, you know, our day basically started at the hatchery. We watered up a truck. We established what's called a sample count for all of our fish inventories that we were going to pull out of today. We counted 50 fish and weighed them. We did that 3 times to establish a fish per pound. Then we knew today we wanted to load our truck with 1,800 trout, and we knew how many pounds to put onto the truck. So after we got the truck watered up, we visited a couple different raceways, and some fish that we put on the truck, or the majority of the fish we put on the truck, were part of our regular catchable program. Today they averaged about 11 inches. We put some big fish on our truck to support our big fish program, which was the Chattahoochee River in Helen and the Smith Creek Delayed Harvest section. Both of those areas got that big fish element. So we loaded all these fish on the truck and started our stocking run. It took us probably about 3 hours to unload that 1,000 pounds of fish. And fishing will be great here at Unicoi and in Helen due to our efforts today.
And John Lee, I'm sure with the people watching at home, they're probably wondering about the way you guys insert or place the fish into the water. Obviously, we saw John Lee out there with the net throwing them into the water. Right off the bat, we just want to let you know it does not harm the fish. You guys take the utmost care in making sure that these fish are safe. But talk about that method. It's actually a method called throwing fish.
Right, yeah, absolutely. You know, all of our technicians are trained in throwing fish. We don't just put them out there on the first day and expect somebody to do that. You know, it takes about a year to learn how to, there's several different throws. Sometimes you throw them underhand, overhand, but as long as the fish hit deep pools of water, they do great. You know, there are some places out west where they drop fish out of airplanes. There's sometimes we use a helicopter to hit remote areas. So like I say, as long as these fish are hitting the water, they're doing just fine. We like to disperse our fish as much as possible so that all of our fish aren't stacked in one hole, and that requires us to move down the creek, throw a few in, get in the truck, drive down the creek, throw a few in. I mean, sometimes we're afforded that opportunity to do some quick releasing, but to get good fish distribution, really that's the only way to get it done.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, you have to put fuel in that truck to get it down the road, to drop those fish in the water. That costs money. One of the ways, anglers, in which you can help is by buying one of those license plates. Talk about that. Right, so there is a special funding mechanism for the Georgia Trout program, and that is the Trout license plate. You know, the license plate, I believe, costs about $25. $20 comes and has to be spent on the Georgia Trout program. We've purchased all of our stocking trucks with that. We've purchased trout feed to make our fish larger. We also support, you know, so it's used in the hatchery program, but it's also used in the wild trout program. We use it to buy supplies and labor to build stream structures for wild trout. So it's an extremely important mechanism. The other most important mechanism is, for conservation purposes, is buying a fishing license in general. That money, you know, when you buy a paid fishing license in Georgia, you know, you may have spent $5 on a daily license, but that money comes back to us in federal match by tenfold. So really, in order for us to get that federal reimbursement, we have to have you as a paid license holder, which is very important to us and funds not only the trout program, but all of DNR's programs. Well, John Lee, I cannot thank you enough.
Yes,
Learned a
sir.
lot today. It was a blast driving around with you.
I appreciate it.
I do appreciate it.
It was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, really fun time, and John Lee mentioned the importance of those license plates. If you'd like to purchase one, head to your local tag office or go online at the address you see there on the screen. That is georgiaconservancy.org, $25, and it all goes to a great cause. Well, thanks to a partnership with the Georgia Center of Innovation for Agribusiness, this Monroe-based company is glowing with excitement and experiencing growth that one could argue is red hot. That story when the Farm Monitor continues.
We found some old plots in the Sierra that we have measured over time, plots that were measured in the old growth condition prior to a lot of fire suppression, prior to logging. We found not only that over time the forest has increased in density, but it also gave us some insight into how forests used to be structured. They were composed of groups of trees interspersed with gaps, lots of heterogeneity. We decided to initiate a new study where we were trying to develop a thinning treatment that was an attempt to create some of that spatial pattern that we used to see in historical forests. And we're comparing that to a more evenly thinned forest and also against an unthinned control area. What we found is trees tend to be in groupings of 2 to 5 or even 20 trees, and of varying density, varying species composition. There's just a huge diversity in structures. And we think that structure made the forest resilient to fire, and it probably also made it resilient to bark beetles. The heterogeneity in these stands made them resilient to fire. That variation provides discontinuity of fuels through that stand, so that fire can never really build up a head of steam coming through that forest. This is a slab of wood out of our Stanislaus Tuolumne experimental forest, and it illustrates the frequency of fire that we used to see in the Sierra Nevada. This particular piece of wood registered 32 different fires, and you can see that a lot of these fires are as little as 4 years apart. This particular area, it burned. Prior to 1889, it burned about every 6 years, and then no fires since 1889. These really frequent fires used to keep the regeneration at bay, thinned the forest out, and so in the absence of fire, the forest has obviously become a lot denser. We just wrapped up our measurements for this last year, and this forested area is just being hit right now with the bark beetle mortality that's sweeping the Sierra. And what we found is that areas that had been previously thinned are experiencing a significantly less mortality compared to areas that are unthinned.
Finally today, from our friends at the Department of Economic Development comes the story of Monroe-based Escargot, who was on the cusp of exponential growth, due in part to the assistance they gained through the Georgia Center of Innovation for Agribusiness. As Escargot needed to reformulate their product to meet consumer demands, the center connected them with the University of Georgia, who provided the research to create a new product.
When we started Escargot, we wanted to be the natural alternative to lighter fluid and giving consumers a choice where they didn't have to use petrochemical to light their barbecue. They didn't have to have that fuel taste in their food. So Escargot started making Smarter Starter Fluid, and Smarter Starter Fluid is an all-natural lighter fluid for charcoal. It performed great on lump, which is kind of where the high-end cookers are going, but people were using Smarter Starter Fluid when they bought their briquettes. When you're dealing with an accelerant on something as dense as a briquette, it dissipates. We had to come up with a different formula. We didn't have the research and development that we needed, and we didn't have the R&D budget for it.
The mission of the Center of Innovation for Agribusiness is to help our agribusinesses in Georgia connect, compete, and grow. One way we do that is helping connect the resources that we have throughout the university system at Georgia with our private companies to help do the research to commercialize their products. Escargot was a perfect match for the University of Georgia. At the College of Engineering, they have scientists who have been doing biofuel research for many years.
So we needed a product that burned really well and that met the really strict air quality concerns that we have to meet for volatile organic compounds. We went and looked for a whole bunch of different things that could burn, that we could buy in large volume, and that were probably waste products from other industries.
The way you add value to an agricultural product is taking that raw product that we're producing right here in Georgia and doing some sort of processing, some sort of innovative new step to help it sell in the retail market.
Working with the University of Georgia with the grant money that we got from the Innovation Center allowed us to come up with a formula that works great on briquettes, works great on lump, has a great brand, Eco Green, and has diversified our SKU set.
We get to make products that end up in the stores, in the big boxes. It's really great to see that. And it's really great that Georgia gives us the opportunity to work with Georgia companies, use Georgia funding on Georgia product.
Being able to help our agribusinesses grow their business and create more jobs benefits everybody in rural Georgia.
With the Centers of Innovation, they're not interested in equity. They're interested in employment, and the revenue that can be driven from your product is going to increase the tax base that's going to make things better for Georgia.
Very nice, and unfortunately, that is going to do it for this week. But first, a reminder for all the latest ag info, be sure to check out our Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest pages. You'll stay informed and see what's up in the world of farming and with us at the show. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week right here on the Farm Monitor.